was doing this, I hadn't really thought about it much. I got some emails yesterday from Steve saying, get organized. And so this is what I've come up with. It is such a big subject. I mean, as I was just thinking, I mean, if we're talking about plans for the future, it could be, you know, sending a Sputnik up to Mars or something at one end, and the other end solving homelessness tomorrow. So I decided to divide it into 3 sections. And the first one I'm calling personal. And I mean, if it's too personal, just don't include something, but like the highs and the lows of the last year and your personal hopes. You know, it doesn't have to be you as a person, it can be you as somebody of your age group, gender, race, or whatever, for the next year, something personal. And that will probably be the first, I don't know how long it'll take, but not, you know, a few minutes each. Then I thought I'd go global. And then we're talking the big picture, the world. And finally, we'll hone down for the last bit on ICUJP and what we hope for this organization, and start planning kind of things that might work with this organization. Now, I'm going to be making notes, and I would suggest maybe Rick and Steve or some other people do as well, because what I'm hoping is we can build up, like the personal, we might find there are some common themes among us that we could use in some of our programs. The same with the national. I mean, I know full well that Carol Francis is going to start talking about Palestine, for example, and other people are going to have their key things that they're really involved with internationally or nationally, which again, if we start kind of making a note of it, we'll see where the demand is. And the other thing I was going to say was, because there are only 9 of us, I'm not going to be calling out. I'm going to just be, I will ask somebody to start, and then that person can ask somebody else. And when all 9 of us have done it, then we'll go on to the next one. Does that all make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And we've got 2 hours, which is quite a long time. Well, less than 2 hours now. I've got to go and get a clock actually from another room. I just realized I didn't bring one in with me. And so I think the personal probably should be about half an hour maybe. And we can also develop into discussion as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, a monologue. If you say something after we've done everybody popcorning it, then people can kind of discuss a little bit too. And then I'll stop that and we'll go on to the global, same thing. And then I'll stop that and then we'll plan for our organization. Carol Francis, let's start with you. This is the personal, the highs, the lows, your hopes for next year or the immediate future. You have to unmute though.
Unmute. Hi, I hope to have a short film finished by the end of next year. It's a project I've been trying to do for ages. And I hope to get more involved with, of course, Palestine and Cuba, but also more involved with Julian Assange.
And any thoughts about last year?
Oh, about last year. Yeah, I started getting involved with Julian Assange. Yeah, I thought about, Palestine and Cuba both. I'm really, I mean, this is the global thing, but our leaders aren't, but the people are coming along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll come back to that when we do the global. Okay, can you now ask somebody else in the group?
Oh, yeah, Jasmine.
Okay, personal, I just want to be more involved in general and more active and supportive in not only just social justice and in interfaith justice, but also in my community. I want to make a greater impact. I feel like the impact that I'm making on myself, I feel like I can share that with my greater community in my neighborhood. So I want to do that, and I just feel like I could, even if it's just an email Like I want to do that. Like I feel like I could be more participatory and just help where I can. That's what I want for the future. And I really appreciate all the strides that we've had in this past year.
Okay, you pass on to somebody else?
Okay.
Oh yeah, no.
So regarding my connection with the ICUJP, I think if it went through, I have a monthly contribution. It's not a big one to ICUJP, and also vis-a-vis finances. I contacted my Quaker meeting, Santa Monica Friends, and I told them I don't feel as connected with the meeting as I do with some other things. And I'm going to reduce my payment to you and send half of my payment to KPFK. I feel that keeping that radio station going is extremely important. I'm really interested in the things I've been listening to there. And regarding our demonstration on the 11th, I got together with Fidel and with Phil, and we clarified the lyrics, and I contacted Kathy Deppie, and I have another friend who's not coming to ICUJP, but I know she's like I am, you know, politically or whatever this is, spiritually as well. And so I'm going to ask her to lend her, I think she plays the recorder, Kathy Deppie plays the flute, and anybody who happens to be in the room and has not been asked who is musical, I'm just looking around, I know Anthony is, we're going to have to get together and join our voices in this, because last time, I think the big thing that I wanted to make sure changed was that our, what do you call those things? Microphones were not effective. People couldn't hear what people were saying. And certainly with a group, I know when I play with a group, nobody can hear the violin, thank God. But I'm going to raise my voice, and anybody in the group who wants to sing too, I know that a lot of you do sing. So on a national level and a worldwide.
No, wait, we're doing that separately. This is just personal.
Oh, I thought you meant we had, this is just personal? Okay.
Yeah.
And I have 4 wonderful grandchildren who came out here, and I like to help people. I mean, people who have trouble with cleaning up their mess, I really do a fantastic job, but don't ask me to remember where you put your Social Security card.
Okay, I'm Phil Way. I'm with Orange Grove Friends Meeting in Pasadena and the ICUJP board. And I think the most significant thing in my life was that I got my contract at Orange Grove Meeting renewed for another year. And so that's a plus. And I've had some really good visits with my kids. One in Phoenix and one came down from Alaska, and it was wonderful. And that's kind of it for the moment. And thank you.
Personal stuff. Well, I published my 4th book this year, a biography of the screenwriter Ernest Lehman, who wrote, North by Northwest, West Side Story, Sound of Music, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It's gotten some nice reviews from Leonard Maltin, the Library Journal, Shelf Awareness, although never as many as I had hoped for, of course. I've started work on my next book, which will be I'm not sure how many people remember Morris Udall, but his campaign for the 1976 Democratic presidential nomination. So I'm working on that. Political stuff. obviously working on closing Guantanamo, the surveillance state, Julian Assange, and then whatever comes up on an ad hoc basis. Fernando, Tag, you're it.
Yes. Okay. At least for me is that we know there's a problem on homelessness, but for me personally is that if we I look at it this way, if we are many, we are effective. So I'm looking to maybe to we already have ICUJP and I have to also look for maybe other people that pressing like our government, because we spend so much money on these wars, but there's nothing in terms of resolving many immediate needs that we need, like homeless, and of course there's many problems that we face. But I'm looking more of this is not a short term, but rather it's a long term, at least a commitment, because one of the issues is really homelessness and so forth.
Thanks, Fernando. I'm not sure that I completely understand the format for this section. I will just say that this year I've been very impressed with the work of Rick Banyalis. I've viewed some of our videos on our YouTube channel. They have a very compelling introductions, musical, visual introductions, which is very impressive. And I think that Rick has, generally speaking, gotten our Friday Forum videos up in a very short order. And I think they're important and powerful, and they're things that we can tell our friends about, and they can experience what we're doing in a period of an hour and 15 minutes, maybe. That's it. I'm grateful for Rick is recently rejoined us after many years, and he has really committed to our work and to facilitating our work. And I think he had, a good, he capitalized on the momentum that Morgan Tucker gave us. And we should thank Anthony and Jill for bringing her into our circle for a period of time, and then enabling Rick to do such outstanding work since she moved on. So that's me for the time being. Steve.
Thank you, Dave. As I understand it, we're talking about this year from a personal standpoint and our hopes. This has been an extraordinary year for me. Many of you know we moved from Los Angeles to Sonoma County. We bought a house in Sebastopol near my children and grandchildren, Pete and Hank. Pete will be 5 in January. Hank is 16 months. It's been an extraordinary shift in our lives to be up here and this close to them. It's been an important year for me in that sense, and it's created some challenges because I want to stay close to my friends in Los Angeles. My son is still in Los Angeles, Evan, and he visits us as frequently as he can, but that's a bittersweet aspect to having moved away from LA, and likewise seeing people personally down there. We all got used to Zoom over COVID and continue meet here, and I'm meeting with other groups weekly and it's a tremendous benefit, and I think it will continue. The last thing I want to say about this year or the coming year in a personal sense is I find myself trying to savor moments. I am literally conscious of eating a meal, tasting, drinking a beverage, looking out into this beautiful countryside of Sonoma, and savoring these images, savoring what I see and smell and taste. There's a little foreboding in that. I turned 78 years old in October. My parents didn't survive past their 50s and 60s. And I know we've lost people who were younger than me. So I am looking forward, but looking backwards and savoring moments. And I don't want to get morbid, but it's almost as if this is my last taste of coffee, am I appreciating each swallow and each taste? If this is my last taste of a good salad, am I just wolfing it down to move on to some other purpose, and instead really savor each bite, metaphorically and actually? So those are my thoughts personally this year. And I will turn it over to Anthony.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's really wonderful to hear all of your stories and insights. And I want to echo what Dave said about Rick Benalis. He's added so much and a new perspective to our organization with the entertainment world and seeing it from a social justice lens. So I'm very grateful to all of you. And some of the high points of my year, one of the interesting high points was that I joined the Methodist Church in June. I've been attending the Methodist Church here in Pasadena with Jill, and she's found a spiritual home there. And so I've been involved intimately with the Methodist Church for a long time because of my previous wife. So I'm still very involved with the Quakers, but also involved with the Methodist Church, where we had our big annual event for making housing and community happen. And that was a real turning point for us. It's our fourth year. We had 130 people show up and a couple of dozen organizations, and we called our event Uniting for Housing Justice. And our goal was to bring together all of the players in our city who are involved with housing justice work, homeless service providers, affordable housing developers, churches, etc. And it was powerful and wonderful and joyful. And it's already having some effect. The assistant mayor of our city, who has not been a friend of affordable housing or a friend of ours, is eager to meet with us and got in touch with us and said, "Oh, Anthony and Jill, I really want to meet with you." And so we're going to have a meeting with her next week. I'm feeling that this next year is going to be a turning point year in many ways for our housing justice work. And on a personal note, more personal, I visited my sister in New Jersey, and she and I are going to Greece together next year, God willing, in August. And she hasn't been to Greece since she was 10 years old. And I'm treating her to this trip because I really want her to have that experience. So it's going to be an amazing trip. We're going with a couple of friends of ours, and my sister and my cousin will be there. So, and I have about 20 different cousins in Greece. So it's going to be very special. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, as well as ending homelessness in our city.
And you name somebody else?
Oh, let's see. Jasmine?
I think it's Rick, me, and Avon. I think are the only three left.
Oh, Rose.
Well, I didn't mean to say Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Well,
all right. Okay.
Love to hear from you, Rose.
Okay. Well, personally, I mean, the downs of this year, every year I do a Christmas card list because I really like Christmas cards, especially for people back in England. And I keep the list year after year. And this year I had 7 names I had to cross off it because people were no longer with us.
Oh,
I mean, Steve was kind of hinting at this. I mean, I really got an intimation of mortality this year. I mean, two of them were a lot younger than me and people I was really close to. So that was kind of the down of this year, that, you know, people are dying around me. My circle is getting smaller. My friendship group is getting younger. And so that definitely was the down of this year. And something that I think, you know, maybe an ICUJP we should look at, since we're all a greying group. We've never had a group talking about age concern and things like that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The highs, I think, were continuing my hobbies and my life, which I enjoy greatly. I spent a month in England, half of which I had COVID for, so it wasn't as good a trip as it should have been. And that's about it. Rick.
Thank you. I was just saying, I know Avon was on the chat and she's saying that both her and Michael are recovering from COVID. So she's trying to keep quiet while listening. So I just let her know, you know, she can let us know on the chat when she's ready to speak. But yeah, it's been really interesting this year on a personal level with my mom and dad. They're both, my dad's 98, my mom's 94 now. So, you know, they're slowing down mentally a bit, and, you know, just going to appointments with them. And yeah, it's that thing about that Steve was talking about with savoring every moment that you can. And it's interesting how relationships change over the years, because there was a point where I didn't talk to my folks for a long time, for 3 or 4 years, because of family issues and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's interesting how your relationship changes when the landscape changes. But it's been great with my wife Mimi and I and our nephews. It's been really good. One thing I haven't talked about was, you know, I've been in and out of the music industry, and I started talking to somebody in June about a position at Disney. And I'm finally hearing back that next week they want to have our 4th interview. So we'll see what happens with it. I would assume that they would have chosen or made a decision before that. I think they're basically having me talk to everybody in the company. I haven't talked to the mouse yet. I probably will. But so we'll see what happens with that. And it's been a joy to be able to do this stuff with you guys too, because it's fulfilled that need that I have, or started to, in being of service and doing something that is actually making a difference. And I'm just following your leads, and you know, I'm just glad I was able to pick up on a lot of the stuff that Morgan passed over so well. And we'll, you know, see if we can grow all of that next year.
Thank you. Doc Ruby, I see, has arrived.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And I just, this year, it's been a year, and I understand your challenges for health. And this is the first time in my life I've had these kind of challenges in the past 2 years, which was really, really, and it wasn't COVID. So it was just from having a trip or a fall, and my physicians walking, talking, everything. So I'm so happy I got through this year. And I into the new year. The last thing I did this year was the choir. I decided I'm going to go back into the choir, but not go back, go forward into the choir because I love music so much. So I was able to participate into the Agape choir this year and in our Christmas time. Before then, I was able to participate and go forward into our new mayor. And I'm so very happy to have worked with her before into the streets. So when we were doing different things and participations, like passing out food or some of the other clothes or other things, well, I know for what she was saying, and well, why wasn't this? They're not doing this. And it was quite maybe about 5 years ago or so, maybe a few even before then. I looked at, and I was so happy that she's doing all that she was talking about. You know, it wasn't just something up front. And to have a female mayor, yes, there's so many females that are coming through with different things. So, and then before then, just working with ICUJP, being able to keep them supported and to go forward and bringing new people in, and just seeing a clear purpose and direction for us going forward in the new year. I would like to say, hey, we're still making it. And thank you so much. Thank you, Rose, for just being you and for your work. And I pass.
Thank you. I think Avon is the only one left, and I hope you get better soon, Avon. If you do want to say anything, just, indicate.
Rose, we have a new arrival, another new arrival.
Oh, yes. Hello, Father Chris.
Sorry, I'm late. So Chris Panette, St. Camilla's Pax, the ICUJP, Death Penalty Focus. And personally, our family continued to have many more deaths with COVID. So I'm remembering my niece, Angela, who died after 9 months of ICU hospitalization. But I'm also celebrating 2 new grandnephews and nieces during the last several months. And it's been wonderful to have them around during the holidays. I guess I have been struggling with what's been going on our internet. I've experienced it as bullying, and I do hope that we can somehow move forward in the way we communicate to each other. I have never experienced it in this group until this last several months around Ukraine, and it's a pain in my spirit right now. And so I hope that also affects how we move forward and how we speak and how we say things. And so I struggle because my part of my world is telling me daily about the death and murder of children and women, as well as other innocent victims there. And to constantly hear that that's not happening at the hands of Russia is daily painful for me. So I will continue to support people who are trying to rescue those who have been maimed and those who have been killed in that war. And how do we as nonviolent people on time live with war? It's not like in previous wars, like World War I and II, where it was over there. We saw it with Vietnam, but we are seeing it instantly in this war. So that's a heavy piece on my heart, both as an individual, as a person of faith, as well as a member of ICUJP. So probably more than you wanted to hear this morning.
Thank you very much. We will kind of touch back on that, I'm sure, in the next section. Did I miss anybody else? No. Okay, well, I certainly have seen some themes coming out here. I don't know whether other people have or not, but we'll table that for the moment and come back to it. Now it's 8, wait a minute, I've got to get my phone to see what time it is. 8:23. And so we've got now 14, maybe 15 people, which is the group. Oh, Michael Novik's just arrived too, which is a good size. So if it's 8:23 now, it'd be nice if we can finish the next section by like 9, so that then we've got half an hour to actually think about how what we've discussed can actually, you know, improve what we're doing as a group and give us a direction. So if you can keep your comments fairly short, but really what we want to know is which issues in the world are the ones that animate you the most, horrify you the most, please you the most, so that we can just have a list of topics that people are really aware of, really knowledgeable about, would like to work on, would like to kind of know more about, do know a lot about. You get my drift, I hope. So I will set the ball rolling. Well, I'll start with Carol Francis again, because I think I know what she's going to say.
Let's see if I can go through this entire thing without mentioning Cuba or Palestine. Oh.
You've done them both.
God. Okay, yeah. I mean, what's going on in Palestine? I've been trying to find somebody for our Friday forums who can speak there, and I'm working on a group that takes delegations to Palestine. And what's going on right now is just, you know, people are not taking it anymore. Cuba is really a lesson for all of us and what we can do. I mean, under the most intense economic blockade, they're developing medicines for against COVID and sharing them with the world. But the other thing I want to really talk about is the case of Julian Assange, because Vinny, who is the national organizing person for the US, told me last night or the night before we were talking, and he said Robert Corsini, who is the videographer for the Assange Committee, not surprising, was interviewing people from different war-torn countries. And he told Vinny, the moment I said Julian Assange to these people, they literally burst into tears, because it was Assange that saved them, that brought their case to light.
Thank you. Can you ask somebody else now?
Oh, you're right. Let's see. Fernando.
Well, this is really a big task in all of us. You know, like as you said, particularly the homelessness and so forth. But I think, you know, looking at the world, you know, hopefully we can stop the war in Ukraine. You know, though they started it in 1914. That I mean, was that 2014? You know, they have a coup d'etat there. You know, that push out the person that within Russia, you know. But in any case, war is really sad. It's really spending tremendous amount of money, and at least for me, we should really stop that. But again, as I said earlier, you know, this is really a long-term problem, you know. Because I'm, at least for me, is that I'm committed that you know, as long this imperialism continues, it will continue to plunder, you know, all of us. You know, this money is being siphoned against us, and you know, there's no ending, as you know, in terms of war, because this military-industrial complex is really it's designed to to steal money from us. You know, we are so rich, at least as a country, like not me personally, but as a country, it's a huge amount of money, and they will continue to do that. That's the reality, whether we like it or not. And so for me is that to really look at in a long term, to join or to build, you know, the alternatives between the Democrats and the Republican. At least for me, is that they're both the same, and it will continue to plunder us. And hopefully, ICUJP is one of the organization can make things realize in terms of really creating an alternative. Because I'm thinking about this a long time ago, maybe at least a good 5 years. You know, the solution is that we have to create our own, you know, our own organization to hopefully uh, to solve many of this problem. Because you know, ICUJP stand for peace. You know, and so, you know, and we're not gonna get that from Democrats or Republican. So all I can say is that for now.
Thank you very much. Can you pass on to somebody else, please?
Our chairman, Stephen, if possible.
Thank you so much. And I will try to be brief. I made a few notes. I think 2023 should be the year that Julian Assange is released from prison and returned to his family, and that the world take note of one of the worst attacks on the human rights of an individual and on freedom of the press worldwide, prompted by the governments and administrations of the United States of America. This is in league with some of the worst human rights, individual human rights violations in memory and in history. And I am so grateful that Carol Francis has elevated this issue, and so many of us are working on it. My second goal for 2023 is peace in Ukraine, peace that recognizes human rights, self-determination, and holds people accountable for war crimes that have occurred in that terrible, terrible war. Domestically, we need to continue to restore democracy. We need to elevate people like Karen Bass and combating houselessness and the evils of white supremacy in this country, which persist to this day and have always been under the surface, but have been allowed to have the lid taken off the garbage can by Donald Trump and his minions. And we have to be very deliberate about opposing racism in this country in such a significant way. And then I have thoughts about how we can achieve that in the next segment. I will turn it over to Phil Way.
Thank you, Steve. Kind of three things come to mind about 2023. One is during basically 21 and 22, we have seen a huge number of Black women appointed and elected to official positions. And I think that is outstanding and hopeful. I'm going to call 2022 the year of the Black woman. On the other end of the scale, I am deeply disturbed by the apparent increase in government violence in Palestine, government violence perpetrated by the Israeli government in Palestine. It seems like they're really trying to silence people, and I have kind of a personal issue with that from the standpoint that I have a Jewish branch of my family, and some of them go real silent or just do a when I praise Ilhan Omar or say anything critical about the Israeli government. So I don't think I've seriously damaged my family relationships, but there's places where it seems kind of tipping. But anyway, and the other thing, of course, is racism. I've been a non-racist all my life, and I am working to become an anti-racist with a group of people at Orange Grove meeting. And we have regular sessions where we're working on basically trying to raise consciousness about racism at all levels in ourselves, in the Friends meeting, in the community at large. I think it's probably the biggest issue of our day in many ways. We've got to beat it. We've got to conquer it. It's terrible. Anyway, I'm in. How about going to Jasmine?
For me, it's been in the news a lot. Ukraine has been on my radar, and I've been praying for peace and peacefulness and harmony across the region, even Russia too, just to have peace. Because even in peace, in racism talks, that would help. That's a solution. I just feel like the more peace is involved, the more there's hope and there's a bright future ahead. So I really hope for the world peace and a greater appreciation of interfaith and interfaithfulness. So Ukraine, peace in
Thank you.
Ukraine.
And who else are you passing to?
I pass to Reverend Ruby, to Dr. Ruby.
All right, back to me. Excuse me. And my thing is too, and I'm so glad you passed to me when you said the word peace, which I said before was patient energy, attitude change, exercise. And it's a power also that works through each one of us because we're so different on here. And that's what I love about ICUJP is the difference in the nationalities, the difference. And when Steve brought up, or let me see, no, it was Fernando that brought up regarding the Democrats and the Republicans coming together. And what I think too, they keep putting out people like men getting married to men or women getting married to women, or that being important. I look at it like this: we're all the basics human beings, and that's the importance. It's not who we're married to or what we're thinking about, except that we can raise our consciousness, as Phil said, regarding any kind of racism, any kind of thing, except what is truth and what is right and what is justice. And this is what, when Steve was talking about the gentleman, being released, and when we think about, the different wars, we have to know that the one big thing is this planet about this. And so many, what I find too, is when the children and the youth, They want to see this. This is what they really are interested in. The world coming together. And so that's my biggest thing right now. It's just this world, whatever, and us as with ICUJP just coming together in the things, and I'll speak about it in the next segment as we pass, but more about it. But no matter where we are, who we're married to, or whatever it is, we all bleed and we all pee. So just coming together, and the thing is we can all love no matter what. So and I would like to pass to you, Rose.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the environment, I mean, you talked about the planet. I mean, I'm seriously very concerned about what's going on with global warming and the regressive kind of people in the Republican Party who are now going to be ruling the House, who will probably kind of put a lot of obstacles in the way of environmental issues and helping with global warming and alternate fuels and all that. I mean, that's a very big one for me. And the other really big one for me, I think, probably because I'm so involved with it, is the homelessness. And yeah, okay, I will pass to Maggie.
Actually not. I'm just so impressed with everybody's comments, and especially I'm sort of dumbstruck about what Father Chris talked about. And that's because I'm not in social media at all. But I do have this new boyfriend who totally opposed our involvement in Ukraine. So I had to realize that what I was seeing on TV was a completely different story. And I need to keep my mouth shut when I'm with groups of people where I'd like to be able to express my opinion, because I don't know anything. I'm not informed on what's really happening, on what the truth is. I think I know some of what the truth is, and I know when people are lying. It seems to me that we can't all agree that it's wrong to lie. Certainly we can't all agree that it's wrong to be violent in the world out there, but within our group, I like hearing what the truth is. So I'm just open to what people have to say about the world, and that's why I love coming to our group.
And you're passing on to somebody else?
Oh, yes. Let's see, who has not spoken yet?
Anthony, Rick, John.
Okay, I'll pick John Crampner.
Thank you. And by the way, earlier when I initially spoke, Maggie, I neglected to thank you for being part of the ICUJP house band, which will be performing the Close Guantanamo song at the protest rally. Well, obviously with me, of course, one of my main issues is closing Guantanamo, and then ideally having reparations made to our prisoners there and at the CIA black sites, and less likely, but still hopeful, is prosecuting the high government U.S. officials who set it up and who have maintained it. I'm also active on the issue of our increasingly Orwellian surveillance state, Julian Assange, and really there are so many issues now that it's almost like the number of stars in the sky, and it's just you sort of try to give a little to each one, but you try to do that and then periodically have your own actual life. So that's kind of my situation. And I'm not sure who to pass it to. Does someone want to just sort of grab the baton? Or
There's Rick, there's Anthony, there's iPhone, whoever that is.
Rick, go for it.
Thank you, John. I do think that there's a couple things there. There are a few things that, let me put it this way. There's one thing that happens when you have empathetic and progressive people trying to work together is that we all see issues where we want to make things better for everybody. And trying to consolidate them into something that we can approach, have a clear vision on, and be able to put together a process that actually moves the needle on a few of them. That's a hard call. So I think that this kind of process this morning is really insightful, and it really sets us up well to be actually, have some serious accomplishments at the end of the year. But for a couple things that I think that we might be very efficient in working on is that we already have a consolidated group of organizations that are interested in finding justice for Julian Assange and other whistleblowers and other writers. So I think there's maybe some even broader coalitions with something like PEN, teacher organizations and teacher unions. I think all of that can be a broader coalition for that same goal. Ukraine, obviously, and Russia and everything that's happening in Europe, with and of course that's really more reflective of creeping fascism that's not only happening across the pond, that's happening here. So if we're talking about politics in America, I think anything that has to do with parties and anything like that is probably not going to be able to get past the wall of predatory capitalism and until we actually get some campaign finance reform. So maybe that's something that we can find a delicate balance in working on. So who did we not hear you from yet? Chris? Anthony, sorry.
Well, you've covered so much, but I do want to thank you all because I think this is really a learning community, and I've learned so much this year, but especially about Ukraine. I'm so grateful to Medea Benjamin. I finished reading her book this past week, and it really was well done. We talked about racism, and I was one of the things that our media didn't talk about was Somalis who lived in Ukraine and how differently they were treated from the white Ukrainians who, when they fled to other countries, were immediately welcomed and given, all kinds of benefits. But the Somalis and the other people of color who lived in the Ukraine couldn't find motel rooms, and some of them had to be airlifted back to their countries. So there's a lot of racism, as we've talked about, that doesn't get really recorded in the media. For example, we don't hear much about the Yemen, which has been one of the great humanitarian disasters since World War II, because, of course, the Yemeni are people of color. They're not white Europeans. So I'm grateful to ICUJP that we really are lifting up a lot of concerns that don't get that don't get attention in the media. As far as one of my hopes for this next year, with respect to homelessness and a housing crisis, Scott Wiener has proposed a bill called SB 4 that would rezone all religious and nonprofit college land for affordable housing. This is the third time around for this bill. It now has a lot of support from the Carpenters Union and other organizations. It's much more hopeful that it will pass. When it does pass, and we're going to be working hard on this, it will be a game changer. It'll open up tens of thousands of acres of church and religious land for affordable housing, and could result in tens of thousands of units of affordable housing being built in our state, and set an example for the rest of the country. So that's one of my goals for this year, is to make sure that SB 4 passes in California.
You're passing on to somebody?
Let's see. Well, Father Chris, love to hear from you.
As many have said, one of the gifts of this group is the diversity of the issues and needs that none of us can do alone. And that's the gift of being together. And so one of the gifts that I hope is that as any network, we can do what we can do, but also be supportive of others, what others are doing that maybe I can't do or someone else can't do just because of time, energy, money, whatever. So I hope that's that continues, because I think that's the gift of so many of us are all busy on many other networks. And so I appreciate those various platforms. What am I, and it might slip into the next piece, but
Can you
there's
just
not
hold
many.
on? Sorry,
Okay.
go on. Sorry, go on.
There's not many of us active pastors around this circle anymore. So as one of those, I do hope how we can bring other active pastor people to this circle, rabbis, imams. So, how can I be a part of that, and how? But it is a challenge. I brought a couple of religious folks to DPF for their board, and most of them have either got fizzled out or busy some other place, or so it's always a challenge of. So I find that, I for those of us who work in a hospital, mental health is a daily reality here in LA that affects both healthcare and homelessness and racism. It all kind of comes together. So all those issues come day to day in front of me as I walk across the street to the hospital. So I do think the war in Ukraine raises both that war, but also the question of nuclear weapons. For them, some of us who have been involved with that for decades, how we can move countries to limit and eventually undo all of the nuclear weapons. And so those are the big issues.
Thank you.
I
think we have Michael and Lucy, I think.
Okay. So Avon?
Avon said at the beginning that she's recovering from COVID and it's not really that.
Oh, okay. So sorry. So just
Yeah.
Michael left then. Okay. Sorry.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I think I appreciate everything people have been talking about. My priorities are kind of reflected in some of the programming I've run on KPFK since I came in there. And so that's, for example, Extinction Rebellion has a show now, which is dealing with the climate crisis through direct, nonviolent civil resistance actions. For example, they did a shutdown action at Van Nuys Airport around the whole question of private planes and how much they load up the atmosphere. Healthcare for Us, which is doing obviously single payer and disparities in the health system. Stop LAPD spying, dealing with the surveillance state and police abuse here, LA Can, around housing and homelessness and so on. And I guess what I'd be interested in here also is some of the same things. In other words, trying to connect with groups that are actually doing not just policy work, but sort of problem solving and organizing communities to empower themselves to deal with these issues. And I think that would also put us in touch with more younger people. XR is mostly, much younger. Not entirely. I mean, it is a multi-generational group, but people are out there, doing mutual aid and community gardens and a lot of other stuff like that. I think would be useful to engage with and hopefully bring in to ICUJP, and then. We put on the gray zone, and I'm sure people here, some people here disagree, but it is a critique of NATO in particular, and definitely support for science, which people here are, aligned with. But I just think we have to be open to some fairly radical, expressions and critiques and actions. Really, I think it's a time for more than just lobbying. I don't dismiss lobbying, but look at the LA City Council and so totally in the hands of the Democrats, really, and what they expressed about what they think of their constituents. So I just think that I'd like to see more of that. Thank you.
There were a couple of things that, two things that I would like to talk about. And one of them is, the first is xenophobia. And the second is the US imperial narrative. Xenophobia, I take to be fear of the other, fear of the stranger. An example of it, I think, came up earlier in the discussion. A form of xenophobia called Russophobia. I have lived with Russophobia my entire conscious life. It's deeply ingrained in me. To this day, I find traces of Russophobia in my heart. And I think it's a poison. And it's a toxic ideology that is going to come back and bite us very hard. That's my personal opinion. I don't recall that ICUJP did anything when Russiagate was being promoted and spread and ingrained in us after the 2016 election, which Hillary Clinton lost. But Russiagate was just another variation, as far as I'm concerned, on the disease of Russophobia and the larger disease of xenophobia. It's no longer fashionable to be transphobic. It's not fashionable to be homophobic. It's not fashionable to regard certain other ethnic or national groups with an irrational fear and hatred. That's out of fashion now. So I think we need to examine our consciences every day. I know I do. And see if we don't suffer from some mild or severe cases of Russophobia. The second thing I would like to talk about is the US imperial narrative. There have been many differences among members of ICUJP, among groups which characterize themselves as promoting peace and justice, among groups that characterize themselves as of the left, or socialist, or social democratic, or democratic socialist. There have been some deep divisions. And I think one of the problems is that the narrative of US imperialism is so powerful and overpowering to an almost totalitarian extent, so that I feel that to find an alternative point of view, one must look into dusty corners and the far reaches of the internet, to areas that many of us would consider beneath us. And I think that's something that I would like ICUJP to talk about in the coming year. How do the mass media, in coordination with the US government, shape our vision of the world? And how does that shaping affect our judgment of right, wrong? And it's time to take a very close look at that, because I think too many people are very well settled in their view of the world. And sometimes it comes out, it reminds me of the very earliest stages of the Vietnam War, when the self-identified left was deeply, deeply divided. And there were people on the left, or the liberal elite, who fiercely supported US involvement in the Vietnam War. And it took years, and it took a lot of suffering to wake some people up on the left. Finally, I could be wrong. Every day, I am forced to doubt what I believe. I'm forced to question the information that I have. It's not a comfortable place to be. So that to me is, and I say that just to let people know that in this very moment, I am not confident. I'm not completely confident in the veracity of what I am saying. I live with self-doubt all the time.
Wow.
And there are certain seasons and certain periods when that self-doubt is really reinforced. So that's, please keep that in mind if you find my remarks offensive or bullying. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I shouldn't be replying, but as a European, I found that absolutely fascinating. I was not brought up with Russophobia. I was brought up with Americaphobia. And, the European, I think, prejudice is probably directed this way rather than that way. I found that interesting. And American imperialism was the reason why. But anyway, I shouldn't comment, but you just caught that. Vida, welcome.
No, I'm happy to. I'm so glad to see everybody. I am out of the loop. I cannot get the link to camera. I was at 7:30 here at my computer, and I just did everything I knew to do, and I couldn't get on. So finally, I gave up. And then finally, Steve, thank you very much. I got the link you sent for me. A couple of things. I think this last year has been so much change. I think we say that all the time, but the intensity of the changes in my lifestyle and what I've seen around seems to be much more intense. Part of it, as we all know, with the COVID sort of upended our schedules and things. And at the same time, there are changes in my family. Part of the family moved to Honolulu. Part, so we were all kind of separated, not really separated, but distance-wise we have. And that's made a change. And then it just comes as a bit of a shock to find that I'm getting older. Can you believe it? I don't know about the rest of you, but for goodness sake, where did this come from? I think so. But so you have to, and I'm adapting, I think, very well. Actually, I'm feeling more like going internally, searching and doing contemplative studies for myself, which is a little different from the way I've always lived, which has always been on the go and too active. So I am forced, but happy to be forced to be more internal. And I just want to say one other thing about the world situation, because I was thinking this, Dave, I so appreciate, David, your intense feelings and your self-doubt and your self-exploration. But one of the things that I when you were talking about that, I thought, I love Russia. I've been there several times. I love the literature. I love the music. I love the ballet. I love St. Petersburg. I took a river trip from St. Petersburg to Moscow one year, one of the best trips that I ever took. So the politics is different, and I understand, what we need to be careful about. But as far as just the intensity of the people and the knowing of the people, I feel a real alliance kind of. Anyway, that's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it is, a minute, look at my trusty phone here. It's 8 minutes past 9. And if we want to kind of, tie it up at the end, we maybe have 10, 15 minutes. So I think instead of going round, because that will take too long, I think we'll have to do it more kind of at this point, the old fashioned way, raising your hand if you have a thought of what you've heard this morning, things that maybe make you feel good about what we're going to do next year, give you new ideas about next year, just kind of like exchange ideas. So I think, okay. Oh, yeah. Fernando, you put your hand up.
Yes, I really agree with Dave, because ignorance in history, it's, it's the uncertainty of things make us ignorant, And so I agree to discuss many of what Dave proposal. Because, for example, here in the U.S., we don't know, where's the people when they have this thing happen in Ukraine. At least 14,000 people were massacred, and mostly Russian people in Ukraine. Not too many people here knows about that. How many people knows about the discussion of Gorbachev when the Soviet Union fell, and not too many American are aware, and so ignorance really can put us in a bad situation. When you look at the U.S., it's really clearly that they spend all that money, to sustain this war, but it's the interest of military-industrial complex. We have 3.5 million are in jail, and many old political prisoner. It's happening here, and so this is really the reality, and so we need to discuss many of these issues, because we want peace. How can we have peace with Russia if we don't even understand them? How can we have peace with China, and all we do is anti-China, anti-Russia, and anti-minority, for example. You have a lot of minority people that, that being quiet because the dangers of white supremacists is really clear. 27 million Russian died in World War II, and saving a lot of Jewish, and they really contributed a lot. And we don't, the problem is that we choose to close our eyes, and many of these historic event that happened, and of course, I become you know belong to the peace movement when I come out from the military. I was in a Marine Corps, and I see many of this idea, the hunger and so forth. That's what's happening here. But anyhow, I don't want to bore you with all that talk, but I do agree with David.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying you would like us to have some programs about false news, the knowledge of social media, those kind of things, that kind of program for ICUJP next year to kind of work our way through that stuff. And I think that's good. John, I think your hand is up next.
Let me respond a little bit on that, since you.
Okay.
I meant to say that really discuss many of these Russia phobic and many of these issues, but at least internalize in terms of the ICUJP first. And
right.
So when we do that, then then maybe we can talk other things. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yes. Since I mentioned that I'm interested in the surveillance state, that one thing for the group to consider for the coming year is maybe inviting a speaker from the Electronic Frontier Foundation up in San Francisco. They're extremely knowledgeable, and it would be good to get someone from that group to give their take on what the surveillance state, what's currently going on in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Carol Francis, your hand up.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, hang on. I just wanted to know, because I'm trying to do it in order people put their hands up.
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve was the next one, and then it was Phil, and then it would be, Rick, and then you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, but.
No problem.
Oh, and then Dr. Ruby. Okay, Steve.
Thank you. I am proud of ICUJP. I just want to say it. I think it is extraordinary that for 21 years we've been doing this work. We are a group of opinionated, strong-willed people with diverse views across the board of religion, politics, society, economics, and all the rest. But my goodness, to be able to have this diverse group meet every week and then plan programs and events throughout the year is really extraordinary. And I think we've got to take account of that as we move into the new year. I want to say that I've told the board this, that I think 2023 will be my last year as chair of this organization. So I want to plant the seed with everybody here and anyone else that that's active in ICUJP who's not able to join us today, that we need to build a leadership ladder, that we need to cultivate new leadership, younger leadership, I will dare say, to continue to lead and help grow and see this organization prosper. I think next year we should be exploring themes that separate the people from their leaders, that separate the people of Russia, the people of the United States, the people of Israel, the people of other countries from the disastrous leadership that currently controls them. And if we make those kinds of distinctions, we can recognize that our goal is to condemn war and violence and torture wherever it occurs, and to hold those in leadership that perpetuate military aggression and war and torture and human rights violations wherever they occur. And that should be the continued mission of ICUJP. I think we're up to that work, and we should redouble our efforts in 2023.
Thank you. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask the rest of you to be really, really brief. Phil, you were next.
Thank you. I was just reflecting a lot on what Dave said. I'm not sure I admit to self-doubt, but a lot of internal struggle about what to believe. And there's some issues where I change my mind frequently as I get new information or a different feeling about something. And one of the things that happened with me is that several years ago, I became quite uncomfortable with just being a non-racist, meaning that it required of me a whole different focus as an anti-racist. And I also struggle with the Ukraine question in the sense that, it's hard not to be critical of Russia's aggression. It's hard not to be critical of the Ukrainian struggle for self-determination, and my whole nonviolent narrative just kind of paralyzes me around the Ukraine issue. It's hard to really wrap my head around what's an appropriate response. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Rick, and then Carol Francis, then Doc Ruby, and that will have to be it because time is running out.
Very quickly, I think whatever we decide on, one thing that we might want to think about is with Steve's mention of increasing our base and increasing who we bring into the organization, who might be leading, who might be on the board. That as far as social media, I hate to say it, but we're kind of stagnating. We haven't increased that much. When I've looked at numbers, and when we've looked at programs that we've done where we had a really good outreach, it was because of the organization that we were working with, sending out feelers, and their people doing, frankly, what we should be doing. Most of the people here are parts of other organizations that, we can, when I send out those Facebook pages and I list all the board members, I rarely see those get forwarded. I rarely see those get put onto people's personal email. If there's reticence about that, we need to consider that. If there's reticence about it, then it's probably not a good idea for us to, if we don't want to be on social media, we're asking other people to be on social media. So we have to resolve that somehow. If we want to increase our outreach, we have to be more comfortable with it. And I'll help people get to that point as much as I can, but it's something we seriously need to take a look at, or else, how many people did we have on this call? 17. I think a goal would be to double or triple that next year at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Carol Francis?
Yes. First, I want to support what Chris was saying about getting more people of churches, leaders of churches, but also more Muslims and more Jews and more other than Christians. I want to share very briefly something that Medea Benjamin said. She was speaking about the Ukraine, and several people, John Parker and others, said, critiqued what she was saying and said, you know, we got to understand where Russia is on this and what the Ukrainians have done to Russia. And afterwards, she said to me and to others, wow, I'm getting attacked from the left. I think that we not only have to talk about what kind of programs we want for the next year, but more events where it may be virtual still, or maybe, but we've never done one on Palestine. We've never done one on Cuba. I think these are ones that can bring people in, and whether it's virtual or live, but we got to get back to actually doing events on a topic that we believe in.
Thank you. This is all good grist for the next one. Sorry.
Otherwise, we're just, you know, educating ourselves, and we go out into the world with this education, but we're not bringing people from. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Doc Ruby, and Doc Ruby, while you're kind of talking, maybe you could be thinking, I'd love you to do the blessing at the end, if that's possible. After you're finished, we'll just do the announcements from other organizations and then the ending, and then we have to close. Okay, so anyway, Ruby.
Basically, what I wanted to say is for next year, one of the things, okay, I'll say real quick. Today is Kwanzaa. And if any of you want to look it up, KWANZAA, you can find out what it is, but it started in the 60s. But today is what they call NIA, N-I-A, and its purpose. It's a collective building and developing of community in order to restore greatness. And this is what we're about here and what I'm hearing. It would be our own purpose in what we're going to do this year. And it's everything everyone thought, really, because what I was going to say, someone brought it up, even about Russia. And I was thinking how I was so interested in dance and everything. And I was very blessed as a youngster because my family was from in Colorado. So I had every religion and every student. And I went to high school in Germany, and I traveled all the trips and everything. And I saw all the people, and I felt the good. Coming back, I was a teenager. And so everything everyone has said on here is what I'm about and why I'm here. So my work this year is on my health so that I can step out again in strength and work through this physically. I need to get with Rick regarding social media because I would rather be in purpose and direction of exactly what we're working about. And Steve, I thank you for the leadership that you've given us, and Michael for what you've gone through and for your capability to go forward with the radio station and how it can be a part of us. Everyone here is a part of this. So I just want to thank all of you. And so anyway, Kwanzaa is spelled K-W-A-N-Z-A-A, if you want to look that up. So for us having a clear purpose in the unification of all the things, Dave, what you've expressed and just everything, I'm just grateful for this organization and for its clarity of purpose and direction. And I pass.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 agenda items now. One is anything from other organizations that anybody wishes to share. I have one of those, which is why I keep pushing this. And then the other is anybody that we wish to lift up before the end of our meeting. So anybody have anything they want to share from another organization? We'll lift up.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Let somebody do it.
No, I have one. Anybody who lives anywhere near the center of LA, next Wednesday at 6:30, there's going to be a special service at St. John's Episcopal Cathedral downtown. And it's going to be run by the faith group of the Poor People's Campaign. And it's a solemn kind of memory of those that died on January the 6th, 2 years ago. They'll be reading the list of the names, which of course is protesters as well as police. And there will be various kind of, I'm not quite sure what's going to be actually, videos kind of from various people and some prayers, and they're going to be lighting candles. It will be streamed on their website, which is St. John's Episcopal Church at that time, 6:30, and they're going to make it into a YouTube. I'm hoping to get that. I don't know whether I'll be able to or not, but I really think it will be really worth going to. So I just wanted to...
What is the name of the organization again?
It's run by the faith working group of the Poor People's Campaign, but it's at St. John's Episcopal Church downtown, which is very close to USC. And it's at 6:30. Any other? I
had a hand up. So I have a book out that I worked on with Oso Blanco, who's a Native American political prisoner who is locked up for robbing banks to send money to the Zapatistas. And he approached me a couple of years ago to work on a book with him. So that's out. It's called the Blue Agave Revolution, Poetry of the Blind Rebel, based on Oso Blanco's stories and poems, but I also contributed poems and stories. So I have a couple of events coming up. I also have a chapter in a book called No Pasaran. It was edited by Shane Burley. It's anti-fascist dispatches from around the world. And that's from AK Press. And then I also was interviewed at length and sent archival materials for a book that's just out called We Go Where They Go, The History of Anti-Racist Action, which is my main affiliation for decades. So I'm doing a few speaking events. One is the 14th. That's a Saturday night at Midnight Books in Whittier. And the other is the 26th at Page Against the Machine in Long Beach. I think it's a Thursday evening. And probably be setting up some others. So, and then I did want to say that in January, we're not doing exactly a fund drive at KPFK, but the week from January 12th through the 18th, we're going to be doing some specially focused programming and special programming on the current impact and significance of the teachings and practice of Martin Luther King over that weekend of the King holiday and day of service. And so looking at, King and how he dealt with police abuse, and King and surveillance, and King and peace, and King and labor, and so on, and how that connects to, current movements. And so if people do want to tune into some of that, that would be great. Thank you.
Wow, congratulations, especially on the book. That's impressive.
In my spare time.
Yeah, right. Anybody else? All right, now, Fernando, you wanted to lift somebody up?
Yes, I wanted to lift up Lawrence Reyes. He's one of our guests before here in ICUJP. And he's also belonged to the left movement, and is a peace-loving person. And so we should really adhere to his what he's saying in terms of peace, because he does good a lot in the community. He's been here in this community for so long, and even before me. And so I want to lift him up. Hopefully he gets well. And I heard he's very ill at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Vida?
I'd like to lift up the memory of Chris Hartmeyer, who died last week. He lived here in Culver City with his family for a while and was so instrumental in getting the farm workers organized, and just a wonderful Presbyterian pastor, and did such good work. Chris Hartmeyer.
Thank you. Steve?
I want to lift up Rose Leibowitz, and I could literally go screen by screen to lift up each one of you. You have all contributed to the work of ICUJP this year. We all know the toll that takes on us. I could expand this to the people who weren't able to join us today on these tiny little thumbnail screens. How grateful I am to each one of you that has done something this year, and in many cases a great deal this year, to help ICUJP survive and to keep the memory and purpose and vision of George Regas alive.
Thank you. And I hope everybody's made copious notes, so there's a good idea how to move forward. Ruby, can you close us out?
Just before you do that,
another hand just went up.
I just put in the chat a Zoom for an appreciation night of Lawrence. If people want to get on that, I had sent it by email earlier, but if you want to copy it out of the chat, that's at 5:30 this evening. People who want to express, what Lawrence means to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just briefly wanted to hold up my friend David Drum, who has stage 3B skin cancer. I took him down to Kaiser yesterday for his PET scan, and I'm crossing my fingers, and I encourage other people to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, Ruby.
All right. So let's just take this time and just a moment of just all being at the inner peace. Peace, power within. As we're lifting up David Drum, we're lifting up Chris Hartmeyer, we're lifting up Lawrence Ray. As Stephen said, especially Rose, and for all of the participants of ICUJP, for its clear purpose for this coming year, and the beginning of, as George Regas, and anyone else right now in our minds that haven't been spoken. Let's just take just one moment. And that moment is the goodness of God, the power within all of us, in the way we think, the groups that we work with, our families, for each and everything in our thoughts, minds, heart, and spirit, for not just this moment, but for this coming year, to know that all things are working together for the processes and progresses of this world, this United States, this earth, the maintenance. I'm grateful to be a part of this. I'm grateful for each and every one, and for all the new people that are coming in, for all of the young people that are interested in supporting this being a better world. I'm grateful for the unification and clarity of all of the groups, nationalities, religions having come together, and knowing and releasing all judgment or anything else that's coming up, except that, hey, we're working together for good. I'm grateful for this project that we have in January, to knowing not just this prison, but all prisons are changed and closed. As I know and accept this and work on this, I give it all to that divine in thanksgiving and prayer. And so it is. Ashe. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amen, and thank you.
Thanks.
Amen. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Everyone in the new year.
Next
Thank you.
Friday.
Take care.
Yes. Blessings in this new year, everyone.
Yes.
New Year, everyone.
Take care of yourself, everyone.
Be well, everybody.
All of you.
Yeah.
All of us
And
in our
Anthony,
families.